Okay, so here we have the picture that shows us the impacts on planetary health, but also the relationship. You see the dark blue circle says bi-directional effects of human-made systems. So it's looking at how the things in the dark blue circle, how they impact planetary health, and also how they impact personal health. So you can see many things on the outside that are changing with planetary health. Surface temperature of the Earth, weather patterns, many are listed there. And then in the dark blue, what you see are the examples of what we are doing, what humans are doing. So energy and transportation systems, right now they are often causing harm, but we have an opportunity with planetary health to improve them, to have more impact on positive planetary health and also more positive personal health and human health. There's also education and health systems, social and environmental justice, attitudes and value systems, urban systems and infrastructure, governance, policy and practices, media, marketing, and communication. And then on the inside, the small blue circles that you can see are lots of the areas that we usually focus on in public health. So looking at tobacco, looking at promoting less stress, promoting better sleep, psychological health, promoting better air quality and water quality. So those parts are also in relationship with the other parts of the circle that you see there. This one offers us different areas to focus on that are aspects of planetary health. So at the top you can see it reminds us of the definition, the interdependent health of human civilization and the natural systems on which it depends. And then you also see the key drivers, which we've talked about. There are many listed there, and I'll remind you: climate change, biodiversity loss, land degradation, pollution, unsustainable resource use, population growth, and urbanization. The next one is the impacts, which we've also talked about, and what we mean are mainly the health impacts, the public health areas that are happening because of these key drivers of climate change and changes in planetary health. So the ones I want you to focus on are the final two. So the planetary health approach, you see there are 4 things listed there. When we are having a planetary health approach, we are having a holistic perspective. So we're not only thinking about our own specific discipline, something like just occupational health or just environmental health, but instead we're trying to be holistic and think about more disciplines working together. The next one is emphasis on proactive measures to protect and to restore. So thinking about how can we restore and repair some of the damage that we've done for environmental health and planetary health. The next one is promotion of sustainability. And this is when we're thinking about sustainability, it can be for ourselves, so our own personal consumption, and thinking about how much are we wasting in our lives, in different areas of our lives at an individual level. It can also be at a bigger level, so looking at production across industries, and then also development. As I mentioned earlier, when we're looking to have more economic development, we can still be sustainable and try to protect air, protect water, protect land, even though we're developing economically. And then the last area that you see is strategies for action. So these are some of the areas and the interventions that we want to promote when we are taking action for planetary health. So one is mitigating climate change, looking at ways to reduce the impact of climate change. Another is conserving and restoring ecosystems. So some of the ecosystems that may have been destroyed in marine, in the water, or in land, we can take actions to improve them. And then we can continue to promote traditional public health measures. So that's where, again, we have environmental health is a discipline that is really good at that and does a lot of work in that area. But our other disciplines, community health, occupational health, applied Thai traditional medicine, they can all work together in promoting these approaches. And then enhancing environmental governance and policy frameworks. So some of the national level plans for climate change, reduction, mitigation, adaptation, these need to continue, and when people are working as health professionals, they can continue to advocate for them. And then the last one is what we're doing here with the lecture series. We want to raise awareness and education across all areas. So again, primary, secondary, university, our family, our friends, and letting people know more about planetary health. So this is one other one that gives us some ideas and recommendations for how to continue promoting planetary health. So we talked about the first one, promote sustainable lifestyles. One of the first things we can do is look at ourselves and think about how we can reduce waste, how we can conserve energy, what are ways that we can contribute just as one person for sustainable lifestyles. Also investing in renewable energy. So this can be something that could be at an institution like the university, and it could also be at the household level. Enhance environmental education, strengthen environmental policies. We talked about those. Foster interdisciplinary collaboration. We keep hearing that, interdisciplinary, because it's really one of the most important parts of thinking about it can't just be one discipline by itself. It has to be the different disciplines working together. And then supporting sustainable agricultural practices, advocate for global cooperation. So one example is having me here as a Fullbright specialist and having a collaboration with the Western Michigan University and Naresuan University in working on these issues of planetary health together. And then finally, encouraging research and innovation. Something that is important to note and that I talked about at the beginning is that the idea of planetary health is not new. So the belief system of many ancient indigenous populations from around the world has always been to recognize that nature and humans must live together in order for everyone to be healthy. So this slide offers some different resources to learn a little bit more about the indigenous planetary health work that's going on. The first two listed there are in Canada. They have an Indigenous Community and Planetary Health Research Lab and an Indigenous Planetary Health Collective. And then the last one is from the U.S., is looking at the Center for Planetary Health and Environmental Justice. One of the areas that they talk about are indigenous determinants of planetary health. So there's 3 main levels, and you can see from the picture that they are connected together and they're all in a circle because they're influencing each other. So this one has Mother Earth level determinants, interconnecting determinants, and then indigenous peoples level determinants. So for the first one, you can see it mentions respect of the feminine, and then the second one talks about ancestral, legal, personhood designation. So what that means is thinking about how different parts of nature might have different kinds of legal protections. So for example, in Australia, they have some rivers that have a law that protects them from pollution and harm to the river. So when people are thinking about indigenous determinants of planetary health, they're advocating for these kinds of protections. This is a video that I recommend you to watch. The link will be available on the website. It is just 9 minutes. It's called The Promise of Planetary Health, but it gives a good visual picture and also an additional description to what we've been talking about to understand more about planetary health at the global level. These are some questions for you to write down and reflect about and think about as you move into your studies in your different classes. You can still be thinking about each of these different areas. So what individual actions can you take to promote planetary health? Thinking about how we talked about individual, personal sustainability. How can the discipline you are studying contribute to planetary health? What are barriers to moving forward with planetary health? So what are some of the problems you see? How can we ensure equity in planetary health initiatives? So again, equity is thinking about, we want to make sure all populations, even those that may be more vulnerable, are included in planetary health initiatives. And then finally, how can we teach and influence our friends, family, and community to promote planetary health? And in conclusion, planetary health is not just a scientific framework or just an academic discipline. It's really calling for urgent collective action and collaboration across the world. We have lots of different ideas and innovations that we can look at within public health, global health, One Health. We can also look at lots of different indigenous philosophies to make sure that we take urgent action for planetary health. And I want to let you know there's a resource list available on the website that has many articles and videos for you to read if you want to learn more about planetary health.